365 Sports here on your Friday, and Grayson Grundhoefer, Sic'Em365.com recruiting analyst with us. And Grayson, week one is here. And look, I think if people go on the website and look at our picks, they're not going to think that anybody's predicting an upset here. But I do find it interesting that I would think that Baylor's biggest weakness or question mark of any question mark they have is in the secondary. And the first rattle out of the box, they're going to get a team that's probably going to have to throw it 50 to 60 times.
For sure. And I think your conventional wisdom for a lot of people is that, okay, well, since that team's going to throw it a ton, then that's going to be a huge disadvantage for Baylor, since everyone, we've talked about it, the cornerbacks, the safeties, secondary in general. What's that going to look like? But on the flip side, my prediction, I have Baylor winning 45-17. So that's like right in line with where the line is at right now, because I think Baylor's a 28-point favorite or 27.5, something along those lines. And my reason for it is that while, yes, Texas State might be able to spread a lot of teams out and might be able to throw it a ton, I have real concerns about Texas State's ability to block Baylor up front, which means I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very well, and Baylor's probably going to be able to drop 8 in coverage at times, or at least be able to create a lot of pressure on their quarterbacks. And I don't have a huge belief in either of their quarterbacks either, whether it's Malik Hornsby or TJ Finley, for various reasons. Hornsby, not a great passer. Finley, not very mobile. You kind of put that all together, and I just feel like Baylor's defense is actually going to have a pretty good day, even though I do think Texas State in the long run will have a good offense this year. And then on the flip side, I don't think Texas State's defense is really going to be able to do much to stop Baylor from running the football, controlling time of possession, all of those things. So I guess that's kind of why I'm a little bit more bullish on Baylor's defense going into a game that I know a lot of people are a little concerned about their secondary.
Yeah, I would just think that the turnover that's been there, which is more even than Colorado at Texas State, which tells you how many players that they flipped over in that roster. Now, a lot of them are senior and junior transfers, so they're guys with experience. But again, I think early on for Texas State, you're going to just kind of see a hodgepodge of probably some pretty good players. Look, Malik Hornsby is one of the best athletes on the field for either team, no matter what you say on Saturday, but is he going to be ready for what is coming at him? I think he will give Baylor some challenges, but ultimately, this team needs probably a lot more time to come together.
Definitely. And you know what? It's very interesting because, you see what Lindsey Scott did for Incarnate Word last year, which is where G.J. Kinney was at before. And he was a good runner. But more often than not, he wanted to stand in the pocket and make throws. And I'm very curious how they decide to go about this on tomorrow, because while you could play Malik Hornsby and go for the upside with the rushing capabilities and the ability to have a true dual threat quarterback, I just don't think he's a very good passer, at least at this point in his career. And, while that could be something that changes over time, I really don't see a lot of upside there currently with him throwing the football, whereas TJ Finley, at least he's shown flashes of throwing the football. And if they're able to protect the quarterback a little bit better, then I actually think Finley could possibly give Baylor more problems than Hornsby will in this game. But we'll see. I mean, I get it, the whole best athlete on the field type thing. But in general, I mean, if he's not throwing the ball well, then I don't think Texas State has any hope of moving football.
So, Grayson, we got to see Utah last night without Cam Rising. He apparently is going to have a robot knee brace on. I've never seen a knee brace bigger than that one in my life, than the one they were showing in the videos there. And if he does play, he's going to have a knee brace on. If not, they're going to see probably the same rotation that Florida saw. What does Baylor need to do well this week for you to feel more confident about their defense, and particularly their offense going against a really tough Utah defense next week?
Yeah, I think I really need to see the pass game from Baylor as far as the offensive side. Florida actually had some success throwing the football. I mean, they threw for over 300 yards. Their issue was they couldn't run the ball at all. And it put a lot of pressure on Graham Mertz, who I don't view as being a very good quarterback. And that's why I had tons of concerns going into the year about Florida. And actually, I don't even think they're going to make a bowl game this year. And last night kind of confirmed that a little bit for me. Their offense wasn't very good, couldn't run the football, couldn't throw the football efficiently enough. But at times there were guys open downfield. And I think for Baylor, they're going to have to be able to have success capitalizing on those opportunities. We'll see if they can do that. I think, they're going to have to do it against Texas State some, because if they do, if they're able to do that against Texas State, I do think it could translate pretty well next week. But it's something that is a question mark going into the year. I know a lot of people have questions about Blake Shapen, and while I don't think we'll see too many concerns tomorrow, I do think he's going to have a much bigger challenge against Utah, of course, and they're going to have to play really well throwing the football. Now, defensively, I wasn't really impressed with Utah on the offensive side. I felt like they kind of took what was there. They had the big 70-yard touchdown, which was a great play call and a very good throw as well. But outside of that, they were just kind of trying to be methodical, which is great. But I didn't see too many, crazy playmakers on that offense that really give me a lot of pause about what Baylor's going to be able to do against them. So I actually think coming out of that game, I feel even more confident that Baylor, should be able to at least have a game plan for slowing them down. And then, as far as the pass game goes, I think that's a little to be determined on the Baylor side of things. But either way, it's probably going to be a very low scoring and defensive type of football game once we get there.
Yeah, not to put the cart before the horse, just I want to get your opinions on what you saw of Utah last night against Florida. And Florida is currently, to me, and of course last year was Anthony Richardson, but less impressive now than they were last year. And I don't know if Billy Napier, I think it's premature to say he doesn't have a handle on that, but he could make the people in Gainesville really impatient really fast if they don't show some kind of growth this year. And they've got a really, Utah is maybe their third or fourth toughest game on their schedule.
Exactly. And that definitely, that gave
I'm not knocking Utah
when
there.
I saw their schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt. They got a tough schedule, Paul. It's a gauntlet, honestly. You got to play Tennessee and Georgia on there. There's a couple other tough games as well. It's going to be tough. And you want to talk about a program that, and really this is for everyone in the country, honestly, but they were kind of in on Sam Hartman as well. And you kind of look back on that and go, oof, man, if they would have landed Sam Hartman, you'd be feeling a lot better about Florida than currently with Graham Mertz.
Yeah, that was that's an interesting one. Okay, who will we be talking about on Sunday morning from Baylor that we're not talking about today?
True that we're not talking about, because obviously when you first asked that question, it was very easily the transfers. When you look at Keytron Jackson and Dom Richardson, and those are kind of the obvious ones. But I think, I think going into and Mike Smith and guys that we've heard about a ton all off season. So I think if you're going to look for maybe an under the radar type guy, I think, how about a couple? I'll name a couple for you. I think, kind of a way off the radar. How about freshman punter Palmer Williams? How about that? That's way off the radar, but he's had a really good camp. He was the number one rated punter in the entire nation, according to Chris Saylor. And I have a feeling that he's going to look really good and kind of give people flashbacks to how Isaac Power looked early in his career at Baylor as well, where everyone got really excited and he was very consistent for them for a long time. But I guess outside of him, a couple other ones, Trey Wilson, the true freshman, defensive lineman. He'll be backing up TJ Franklin. I think he's going to play a ton this year. I think he's going to be really good, really active. And for a true freshman, that's a big deal, especially up front, whether it's on the offense line or defense line, to have a guy that's a true playmaker as a freshman. That's not something you normally see very often. So I think he's definitely one that we'll probably be talking about. And then also, on the offensive line, I think two guys like Caden Siraki and Tate Williams. They've both been in kind of position battles this year with Elijah Ellis. And I think whoever wins that starting job at right guard and right tackle, I think we'll be talking about them in a much more positive light. Because I think right now you're kind of sitting there going, okay, they had to replace a lot of guys up front. You feel really good about Clark and Campbell Barrington. Gavin Byers is an older guy. You kind of know what to expect there. But those other two positions, is Baylor really going to be able to fill those with really talented players? And I think ultimately we're going to see that on Saturday and come away with a very positive outlook, I think, at both those positions.
Grayson Grundhoefer, Sic'Em365.com. Grayson, enjoy the game tomorrow, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Grayson Grundhoefer, Sic'Em365.com with us. The top